Dibba 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 dib. Dibba 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 dib. What's he doing? He's supposed to say bass or freeze. What a tit. Hey, gang. Hello. It's Halloween, which I didn't actually realise as I was setting up to record this. But it just so happens that this is sort of inadvertently a somewhat Halloween-y themey episode, because it's Shaun of the Dead. I said recently how it's surprising that I haven't made any Shaun of the Dead artwork over the years, like at all, that I can recall over the years. Being that Shaun of the Dead is almost certainly my most viewed movie film of all time. Like, I don't know if I've ever, like, straight up thought of or said or called or referred to Shaun of the Dead as my favourite film, because I don't know if it is that. But then what makes it qualify as a favourite film? Because in a way, if it's a film I've seen so many more times than any other film, then maybe it just is my favourite film by default. Maybe it just is. Perhaps it just is, and I should finally admit to that fact. I should finally accept and own up to that. Actually, Shaun of the Dead is my favourite film of all time. Because I have seen it a preposterous number of times. Sometimes there's been multiple times over the years that I've watched it multiple times in a single day. Because it's good. There's a lot of there's commentaries on the DVD by different people, and there's a lot to see. It's good. It's funny. It's fun. It's got my favourite line from any film ever, anything ever in it. There's no I in team, but there is an I in pie. There's an I in meat pie. Anagram of meat is team. I don't know what he's talking about. Fucking comic brilliance. Absolute fantastic. Can't beat that shit. It's just fucking it's funny. That's what it is. But in spite of that, in spite of it being ostensibly, potentially my favourite film of all time, I never even sort of made intonations or moves to make any Shaun of the Dead art. It's just not something that ever happened. Maybe it's like Shaun of the Dead is already such a grand work of art in itself that to make further art of it would be silly. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anagram of meat is team. But that's what I'm doing today. That's what today is. I'm Shaun of the Deading it up. I've watched it 3 times over the last 2 days. One of those times being today. And so that's it for today, for this episode. Shaun of the Dead is that's it. I'm just going to be talking about Shaun of the Dead for however long this episode ends up being. And it is completely, genuinely coincidental that this episode will go up on Patreon at least on Halloween. That's quite It would be something stupid people call ironic. They'd be like, oh, that's ironic that it's going up on Halloween, being that it's a zombie film, a scary, spooky zombie movie. But that's not ironic at all. It's coincidental. Irony would be if it wasn't a scary movie and it was going up on Halloween. No, irony would be if it was like a Christmas movie and I was doing it on Halloween, and then at Christmas I did a Halloween movie. That would be ironic. Kind of. Not really. Shut up. Anyway, what would have been cool, because it's Halloween, is if I wore a costume. I mean, you wouldn't see it, because I don't put the camera on me, because no one wants to see that. Well, apart from that one person, they know who they are, but they're not allowed near me anymore, so we don't need to go into that. But what I did do on purpose was wear my red hoodie, my favourite red hoodie, because then you, everyone out there, you can then say, hey, Ewan, you could say, hey, Ewan, you've got red on you. You've got red on you. From the film, from Shaun of the Dead, the running gag. You've got red on you. And on his shirt a bit, where the pen in his pocket leaked in his shirt a bit. And then later on, his blood. His mum says it. Oh, you've got red on you. And she licks the tissue. And you've got red on. So I've literally have got red on me. Very literally. Not stains, not blood. But I have. My hoodie is on. I put it on. It is on me. And so I quite literally have got red. Would that count as a Halloween costume? Like if I got invited to a Halloween party and was maybe expected to dress up or have a costume of some kind. If I just wore red and someone said, what are you dressed as? You've just got a red top on. What is? And I said, I've got red on me. And then would they get it? And then would that... I mean, dressing up as Shaun is probably one of the easiest and kind of most recognisable sort of like... Not most recognisable, but... probably one of the easiest Halloween costumes you could do is to dress like Shaun. White, short-sleeve button-up shirt, red tie, just put a bit of red ink on there, and then you're good. You can make a name badge easily enough. Just a bit of red card or something, a bit of card painted red, whatever. Or maybe you even have a job and you work somewhere that has name badges and you can just fucking rock your name badge, whatever. I feel like it is, like, maybe I misspoke by suggesting it was one of the most recognisable Halloween costumes. I don't know if it is necessarily that, but it is certainly, if you dress like that on Halloween with the red on you, etc., then I think people would get it that you are Shaun of the Dead. See what I did there? Shaun. You are Shaun of the Dead. You are Shaun of the Dead, but you are Shaun of the Dead. Did you know the name, the title, Shaun of the Dead, is actually, this is quite a little known fact, but is actually a parody or like a play on words of the classic 1978 film Dawn of the Dead, which I don't think is an accident. I think they might have done that on purpose. Like they might have called the character Shaun on purpose so that they could have the film titled Shaun of the Dead to sound almost identical to Dawn of the Dead. Being that, you know, Dawn of the Dead is the second in the initial trilogy of zombie films by George A. Romero. After Night of the Living Dead, before Day of the Dead. Shaun of the Dead rhymes with Dawn of the Dead. I don't believe that to be a coincidence. I think they must have done that on purpose. There's no way that's... If that was accidental, oh boy! Obviously, I'm being silly. I'm obviously being silly. The issue is sometimes when I'm being silly, some people don't quite catch on, and they comment or message me about things that I said while being silly as if I was being serious, and I have to then state that actually no, I was being silly when I said that. But right, so that's me being right. But did you know? So Shaun of the Dead released in 2004, mid 2004 ish, about a third of the way through. Yeah, the same year, only a month previous, I believe, a month or two previous, the remake of Dawn of the Dead released. The 2004 Zack Snyder, I think, remake of Dawn of the Dead, where the zombies run, was released into... So in the same year, mere months apart, you've got Dawn of the Dead, 2004, and Shaun of the Dead, 2004. Oh, isn't that something of note? That's about all I've got to say on that. It's just that just is what it is. I just think that's quite funny that happened. I don't assume that was done on purpose. The naming it Shaun of the Dead, Dawn of the Dead was probably almost certainly on purpose. But I don't think the release of the remake of Dawn of the Dead in the same sort of time frame as Shaun of the Dead was on purpose. Because how could it be? Why do they bite you? That's also one of my favourite parts of any piece of media ever, is that line. Why do they bite you? It's the way he says it. Where they just come home from... it's just after the it's supposed to say bass or freeze. What a tit. And then they play the music, and then Pete, played by the actor named Pete, comes in, gets very angry at them. It's 4 in the fucking morning! It's not hip hop, it's electro. Prick. Next time I see him, he's dead. And then he what? But it's in that scene, and then he's going, sort your fucking life out, mate. And then Ed goes, what's up with your hand, man? And he goes, oh, I don't know, I got mugged on the way home from work. By you. Some crackheads or something. One of them bit me. Why did they bite you? Like his reaction isn't to go, oh shit, are you okay? What the fuck happened that somebody bit you in a mugging attack? He goes, why did they bite you? I don't know, I didn't stop to ask them. Oh, it's funny. When I say I'm just going to be talking about Shaun of the Dead, this is it. When I say talk about, what I mean is quoting from. Doing all my favourite lines from Shaun of the Dead, of which there are many, of which I can quote many. I've seen it. Lots. Lots is a line that's used a couple of times as well. Well, there are a couple out there minutes ago. How many are there now? Lots. And then later on, when they get to the Winchester, and he does his funny little climb up the steps to look over the fence, and then his funny little climb back down the steps. And then they say, how many? Lots. What do they say? Is it clear? No. How many? Lots. And he looks dejected. As anyone would. I mean, come on now. Did you know the impetus, I like that word, impetus. If you Google the word impetus and spell it slightly incorrectly, it will ask if you meant impetuous, which is not the word I was searching for. That's an entirely different word. The impetus, the spark that lit the fire of Shaun of the Dead, that sparked its creation, was an episode from the television show Spaced, which is a television show I have spoken about at length, and I expect, if you haven't, that you will now at least make moves to try and watch. It's no longer on Netflix, because Netflix is a wank, but you should all find some piracy website or something that allows you to watch Spaced, and you should watch Spaced. It's only maybe 14 or 16 episodes, if that. I think there's 7 or 8 episodes per season. It might even be just 6, but it's a small little show, 2 seasons, a few episodes each, and I think it's episode 3 from season 1 that was the origins, the impetus for Shaun of the Dead, wherein the character Tim, played by... See, because Spaced is written, directed by Simon Pegg, Edgar Wright, and Jessica Stevenson, who appears as Yvonne in Shaun of the Dead. Oh my God, Shaun! If you note, when you first see her, and subsequent times that you see her in Shaun of the Dead, she's wearing like a camouflage, like an army camouflage pattern jacket. And then at the end of the film, she brings the military. She's with the military. We can assume she went off to find the military and is now with them, tracking down survivors. She brings the military to the Winchester to save the day. So it was highlighted right early on when she's wearing the military paraphernalia, and then she is but she's with smart. So it's the same team. It's these two are best friends in the show in Spaced. A bunch of people. Pete is in there as Dwayne Benzie. He stole Tim's girlfriend. Tim, the character in Spaced, played by Simon Pegg, his name is Tim Bisley, named after the artist Simon Bisley, because Tim's character is a comic book artist, a budding comic book artist in the show Spaced. It's always, if you like Shaun of the Dead, if you like art, then you probably will like Spaced. And if you don't like those things, then you probably aren't watching this, because why would you? That would be weird. So in the episode, I think it's episode 3 of season 1 of Spaced, Tim and his best friend Mike have taken loads of cheap speed that they got at a pub, and then Mike is off pretending to be on a motorbike somewhere, and then Tim stays up all night playing Resident Evil 2, I believe, and then he sort of daydreams / hallucinates that he is fighting zombies. He's got a shotgun and he goes, "Hey Deadhead, take a bite of the peach." And he gets like blood sprayed on his face and stuff. And then later in the episode, I think at that point he's maybe dreaming or daydreaming, and then later in the episode he's like hallucinating that that's happening because he's been up for too long, and then he thinks everyone's a zombie and he punches an artist. And when they go to a show, it's a whole thing. But that episode, because of like the zombies and stuff, apparently was what sparked the initial idea of them wanting to do a zombie film. And then, several years later, not that many years later, they fucking went and did it. They made a zombie film and they called it Shaun of the Dead. And it's a bunch of the same people. It's very similar in style and tone to Spaced. They took some jokes that they used in Spaced and applied them to the show. There's the fairly classic one where David's saying, well, I wasn't the one blowing our cover by having a tiff with my boyfriend. And Shaun goes, it's not my boyfriend. As Ed hands him a drink and goes, it might be a bit warm, the cooler's off. And then Shaun goes, thanks, babe. That's also almost, not quite, but almost word for word in an episode of Spaced. It's not that episode of Spaced, but it's in an episode of Spaced where Mike phones Tim, but Daisy, played by Jessica Stevenson, picks up the phone. And she goes, oh, it's your boyfriend. And he goes, it's not my boyfriend. And answers and says, hey, babe. It's all connected. There's a bunch of other like links to Spaced. Some intentional, some not necessarily intentional, but just happen to be there. Actors, things mentioned. It's a whole world they've built. It's a world, it's rich, full of life and character and characters with life and lice. Probably some of them, I don't know. I don't know if anyone in the show does have lice. It's not my place to say. It's not relevant. I don't even need to be. It's pointless even being that this is the Shaun of the Dead episode. It would really stand to reason that I have some kind of Shaun of the Dead art thing to look at. Since I look at comics, I look at art books here. I don't strictly have any. Now, I know some exist. There is I believe, a graphic novelization of the film, a comic book, the film retold in comic book form. I've seen that in shops years ago now, but it's out there, it exists. So I could have maybe tried to get a hold of a copy of that if I had a little bit of forethought or planning or anything. But I didn't. But one other thing that exists that I only really relatively recently became aware of is that leading up to, I think released very shortly before the release of the film Shaun of the Dead, there was a very short comic strip published in the pages of a 2000 AD comic. I'll put it here. I have digital images of this, so I'll look at those. I probably could have tracked down a copy of this issue of 2000 AD. It's got to be out there somewhere. It's obviously years and years, fucking decades old now. 2004, yeah, over 20 years old. Jesus, I only just realised what year it is. But it's again, I didn't. So anyway, I thought it was really cool and interesting to find out that was a thing. That they put out a little comic strip in the pages of 2000 AD, sort of leading into the film that was released just before the film. So I guess part of marketing and advertising as well, which is it's kind of cool. And in a way, it might seem a bit odd to be like, of all the places to like put some kind of advert or whatever for the film, to have it in the pages of this comic book. But the people who made Shaun of the Dead do actually have quite a few connections to 2000 AD, because as previously mentioned, in Spaced, 2000 AD appears quite a lot. The main character, Tim Bisley, based on Simon Bisley, famously known for gaining his fame through the pages of 2000 AD. Also, the artwork that is shown in Spaced, as mentioned, the character Tim is a comic book artist, so whenever you see him drawing in his sketchbook or doing other comic book art, that art was made by, I think, 2 different artists who both worked in 2000 AD. and stuff. There's a comic book shop where Tim works in the show. So they're often depicted reading 2000 AD, or they're shown wearing 2000 AD t-shirts, or there's 2000 AD posters in the background. Like 2000 AD, the art, the artists, the comic, the magazine, its characters, they show up quite a lot in the show space. And that's not something, like if you're making a TV show, you can't just do that. You have to clear it with the, like if it's a brand or a company that exists, if it's Coke, Pepsi, Nike, or a comic or whatever, you have to clear it. So they obviously are sort of friendly enough with, they've built a relationship with, so it makes sense that they'd have, that they made a comic in 2000 AD, and that's what I'm trying to say, is that it's not outrageous and it's actually quite cool that this was made. Anyway, fucking Jesus. So I thought I'd fucking take a look at it. So it's called Shaun of the Dead. There's something about Mary, where evidently we follow this somewhat minor character, but also quite a pivotal character, Mary, from the film. So it's written by this short comic strip. I think it's 5 pages, written by Simon Pegg and Edgar Wright. So it's written by the people who made the film, so it's canon, ostensibly. With art by Fraser Irving, who I didn't know before, but I checked out some of his other art, and it's really good. There's some really good art. Personally, the art in this comic strip feels sort of serviceable. Not too much about it blows me away. I really like the colouring, because the red in Shaun of the Dead is purposefully used. Like, you've got red on you, obviously, but throughout the film, anytime there's like red in the film, it's sort of it's purposeful. It's like the focus, the focal point of the scene it's in, or whatever. So it's used. Even like the zombies in the film, generally, like in terms of how they're dressed and stuff, are in very muted colours, because they almost become like scenery, background or whatever. But then it's whenever you see red, like if it's blood or whatever, that's the focus. So this whole comic is black and white, apart from a few spots of red, which are very, very well used, and so I appreciate it for that. So you've got the narration in this by Shaun saying, "Life is full of surprises. At least that's what they say. I wouldn't know. I don't have one. I don't have a life, I guess." Then he's obviously buying something in the shop from the checkout girl, Mary, whose badge we focus on. And she says, "You've got red on you. Just like me." And he says, "What? Oh, yeah, it's pen." And then he leaves, having bought whatever he's buying. You see Mary in the film, at the not the very beginning, but at the opening, like music montage bit. You see her sort of up front in the shop at the checkout, scanning items through. And then she's the first zombie they really encounter. When there's a girl in the garden, there is a girl, and that's Mary. And then she says, "Next customer, please." And there's a really, really creepy looking guy who says, "Hello, darling, give me a kiss, or give us a kiss." And he's very, very creepy looking. Really good use of light and dark, a contrast of like light and shadow in this comic. Shaun in the doorway, the silhouette, and even with like the little tuft of hair where he's got his little quiff at the front, like even that in the silhouette is really good. And then the shadowing on the guy's face at the bottom really emphasises his creepiness. One of those creepy guys who just like, who talks to people like that in shops and things. I've encountered so many of those people who will just fucking like, they'll be buying something in a shop and just lean over and just say shit to the girl working there, and it's just like, ugh, just fucking don't. Then the next page, I guess her shift is over. She's leaving. Bye, Mary. See you Monday. Bye, she says. And she's on the bus, and you can see a couple of seats behind her the creepy guy holding a carrier bag with red stripes on it, which again is very, very smart in terms of colouring, because it sort of highlights him as the thing. John Carpenter's The Thing in this comic. Mary gets off the bus. She's walking down the street looking very, very worried. And then bumps into Sean with his flowers. He's obviously just bought the flowers for his mum. Maybe he's on his way to Liz's with the flowers. Bumps into Mary, who yells, "Wait!" I think. Let me blow that up on my laptop. Yeah. Because she's obviously scared of this creepy guy who's followed her off. He's followed her onto the bus. You can see him in the top panel. He's on the bus. He's getting off the bus at the same time as her. He's following her through the street. That's a really interesting panel as well, the bottom left one, with the street sort of curving off into the distance behind Mary. That's a really interesting shot. I quite like that. And it's almost mirrored by the bottom right panel where she's yelling "wait" as Sean runs away, again in silhouette, but in like opposite white silhouette on a black background. So that's quite interesting that like their stories, Mary's story is not interconnected, but like interspersed with Sean's. She's happened to bump into him a couple of times, once literally, as their two stories are playing out side by side. So she's outside, obviously, the Winchester Tavern, the pub that plays a big part in the film. And then you see the carrier bag outside. You know that's the creepy guy. And then she's inside. She pops up to a table and says, "There's a man following me. Do you mind if I join you?" And just sits next to this stranger, saying she won't stay long. And then, so she says, "I won't stay long." And the bar looks pretty much empty. The pub looks pretty much empty. And you can see the fruit machine, the silhouette of the fruit machine in the background, which is a good detail. I like that Ed plays. And then the next panel, the bottom panel. I think that's actually Sean and Ed on the left-hand side. That's quite interesting. They were in the pub at the same time. I didn't realise that. So she says she won't stay long, but she's stayed until the night when the pub is filled up and there's several drinks have been had by empty glasses on the table, donated by empty glasses on the table. And then after college, after I left college, I just wasn't sure. I had a few options. But anyway, I'm going on. I don't want to chew your face off. Foreshadowing, I'm sure. But then the guy that she sat down with says, "Listen, can you help me? I'm feeling really ill. I think I need a doctor." She says, "Yeah, okay." Now this guy, see, it's all connected. This guy is, in the next page you can see where he's got a dog with him and he's dressed in the jacket and hat. He's the homeless man that you see at the start of Shaun of the Dead, when Sean is doing his walk to the shop and he says, you got any spare change, mate? And Sean just drops change and you hear it hit the floor and stuff. That's this guy. And so they leave the pub together. She says, "Your dog looks worried about you." "Oh, Jesus, are you okay? He's falling over." "Oh, help! Oh, God, somebody help!" And he's going, "Ugh." His eyes are red. That's good colouring. The sound effect of the "ugh," and his eyes are both red. I like the denoting of rain as well. That's quite good. All those lines. There's a lot of lines. And that's hard to do in just straight black and white. So that's pretty good. And then he bites her. The guy bites her. She runs away. That's a really good bottom panel. It's like turned on its side as she's running away down the street. But she's just been bitten. She's been with a guy who's turned into a zombie, It's bitten her, which means she's infected. She's got the virus, the AIDS. And then she's, I guess, collapsed on the floor with a shadow looming over her, which is the creepy guy. Hello, darling, give us a kiss. And then she bites his fucking lips off. So maybe, I don't know if that's like she had become a zombie and then the first thing she happened to go for was his face, or if he had bent down to kiss her like a real fucking creep and she had turned into a zombie and bitten his lips off. And that creepy guy is the second zombie they see. So they push, in the film, they push Mary over and then she gets up with a hole right through her body. And then they're like, oh, we should go back inside. And they turn to go back inside. And then you see this huge guy who I think they refer to as the hulking man or something. And he's got like his lips are torn away. And this is why? Because Mary has bitten him off, even though she should have like blood all over her mouth, which she doesn't have in the film. So the continuity is a bit off there. But then she's stumbling away down the street, and to the side you can see Sean and Ed singing "White Lines Running Through My Mind" right before the that bit. And that's a really interesting panel in the middle. I like panels that do that have like one scene and then they use separate insert panels to denote the movement of something or someone through the scene. So it's got the one long panel of the street, which again, the curvature is really nice. I like that the way this guy does that in his panels, the streets curving off into the distance. And then the individual panels tracking her movement with the hulking creepy guy bloodied on the floor. And then it, I guess, repeats the narration from the beginning. Life is full of surprises. At least that's what they say. I wouldn't know. I don't have one. And then you've got the Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary, that's relevant also. Depicted just outside the gate to their house. Looming. And then it ends on her badge, but bloodied with red on it. Which is really, because that's that. And then a little, find out what happens, what Mary did next. Shaun of the Dead in cinemas, 9th of April 2004. But that's really good. It's really like well put together and well written, because it starts with the badge clean and ends with the badge bloodied. It starts with that narration that seems, it says life is full of surprises. That's what they say, but I wouldn't know. And then it ends with that same narration, life is full of surprises. That's what they say, but I wouldn't know. But with a much darker tone, because now you know what's coming. Life is about to be full of surprises for our pal Sean. It's got the black and white with red theme, which does go throughout the film as well as this comic. Even just in Sean's outfit. The black and white clothes with the red tie, red badge, and then the red ink and then blood. And it tells a nice little, like, I don't want to call it, it's not a prequel, but a nice sort of preamble leading into the film of the first few zombies that get encountered, how they came to be. A little showing of it's a nice little lead in to the film. On the subject of repeating phrases and motifs, I feel like Shaun of the Dead does those very, very well and very cleverly. Like it's not just there's a couple of jokes that are just like repeating jokes or whatever. The word fuck a doodle do, where Pete, where he's annoyed at the beginning of the film because Ed's, lazy and doesn't bring money to the house or whatever. And then Sean says something maybe about him impersonating an orangutan or whatever. But then Pete's like, oh, because of that, fuck a doodle do. Like, oh wow, how brilliant, fucking great, let's bloody go. Like he's sarcastically pretending or to be impressed by use of the word fuck a doodle. Well, fuck a doodle do. And then later on, right towards the end, where you see zombie Pete in the pub, and Ed goes, Shawnee, look who it is. And Sean realises it's Pete, and he goes, fuck a doodle do. And it's actual surprise. Like, that's kind of just a repeating thing, kind of for a joke. And it's just like, oh, hey, that was a callback to this bit. So there's a few of those in the film, which is sort of cool, fine, whatever. But there's a lot of repeating, like I say, phrases and things in the film that are like, they're necessary, like for plot. Like, it's not just, oh, they repeated the joke, they referenced the thing from before. Because, for instance, there's two examples that come to mind almost immediately, which I will use. One being the Big Al, Ed's friend, apparently, or person he knows, who told him that the gun in the Winchester is a real gun, who also says dogs can't look up. That's repeated because if they just had, if they were in the pub at the end of the film and they had the gun and they were like, oh, it's obviously a fake gun, oh no, but it actually works, then that would be like, oh, okay, I guess there was a gun that you assumed would be fake because it's in a pub in England, but no, it turns out it's a real gun. Then that's like, you could make a film and have that in it and it wouldn't be the end of the world. But the fact that it's mentioned several times throughout the film as Ed and Sean are talking, that the gun is actually real. It's mentioned at the beginning, after the breakup. It's mentioned in the car. And then, obviously it comes up later on when the gun's actually being used. Because it gives a reason for it to be there. Like, the fact that they know the gun is there, the fact that one of them firmly believes the gun is real. And also, if it was just my mate Big Al said the gun is real and that's it, then that's like, oh, well, it could be a lie, it could not be a lie. But then to add to that, Big Al also says dogs can't look up. That means what that does is that turns the information into almost certainly bullshit. If the same person that tells you dogs can't look up is telling you this gun is real, then why are you going to believe him? So you're sort of led to believe, or the characters are led to believe the gun is not a real gun. Or at least Sean is anyway. When you're watching a film, the gun's obviously going to be real because it's a film and that's how it works. But the character is so done with hearing about this fucking guy, Big Al, and his stupid ideas about what dogs can and can't do, and about the fact that John's connected, he's part of the North London Mafia, and the gun in the Winchester is a real gun. He's just so like, oh, just fucking shut up, it's not real. But then it ends up being real. So them repeating that throughout the film really gives solidity to the idea of the gun, to the existence of the gun in the pub, which is very, very smart. But it's not just plot points. It's also because a lot of there's that is almost literally Chekhov's gun. If you show a gun early in the film, then it has to be used by the end of the film. That's the theory, the film theory or whatever that I heard someone talk about, and so I pretend I know what it means. But more than that, the repeated phrases also, they build the world, they build the characters, they flesh everything out so much more. Because there's the other example I had is Yvonne, when she shows up going, "Oh my God, Sean!" And she says, "How you doing?" And it's a very human thing. Certainly British. It's a very British human thing. When someone says, "How you doing?" you go, "Oh, surviving." Basically saying, well, in spite of it all, I haven't yet killed myself. I'm still fucking here, still working, still in a relationship, still doing whatever I'm doing. Because that's what people say. That's a general thing people say in the UK. I don't know about other places, but they say it in the UK a lot. How you doing? Oh, surviving. So Yvonne shows up, surprises Sean, asks how he's doing, and he says, "Oh, surviving." Then that's used again 2 more times. Once when they are going behind the garden fences to get to the Winchester. The whole cruise, the 2 crews bump into each other, and it's very funny because they're all mirrored. They're repeated imagery, etc. And she says, "How you doing?" And he says, "Surviving," which they kind of are. So far, all of them, they're on their way to the Winchester. Oh, well, apart from Philip at that point, but they're basically mostly all surviving. So that just complete, basic average turn of phrase that people use to say, "I'm doing okay, I guess, fine, how are you?" That then becomes well, we're in a zombie apocalypse, but we're finding somewhere to hole up, we're surviving, And then when that same phrase is used right at the end of the film, when Yvonne shows up with the army and she says, "How are you doing?" And they say, "Surviving," and they're just exasperated. It's literally the 2 of them left. Those 2 have survived, and it goes from simple turn of phrase to basically a description of what they're doing to almost a cry for help of "Fuck, we survived somehow, but we don't know for how much longer. Thank God you and the military showed up." Which really it does. It gives the characters character. It stops them being just people delivering lines. It really makes them feel like people that are in this world, that are talking to each other, that have lives and have, they have character. There's more to them. And I think, and that's the 2 obvious examples I can think of for the repeated shit in the film being very cleverly used and more than just they are repeating a joke. It's used very well, and that's done in Spaced. It's done very well in Shaun of the Dead. It's done very well in Hot Fuzz, and we don't really talk about The World's End because fucking whatever. Look, they're both zombies. Oh my God! It's Shaun and Ed, but they're dead. It's Shaun of the Dead. It's Shaun of the Dead. But now it's Shaun of the Dead. He's one of them. He pretends to be dead at one point to get to the thing. And Ed obviously does die and be a zombie in the film. Spoilers, I guess, if you've not seen it. If you've not seen the 21-year-old film. Almost 22-year-old film, I guess. But I thought it'd be cool because, spooky time, do a Shaun of the Dead episode. It's about zombies. I've got red on me. Draw them as zombies. I drew, because I really, really love the scene where they push Mary over and she splats onto the thing. She gets a bit of that. And their faces are so perfect. Where Ed just bites his lip and looks surprised, and Sean's covering his mouth and they hold on that for a couple of seconds. So I was going to draw that, but I was as I was drawing it, I was getting a bit bored of drawing it. It felt a bit too meh. So I thought, why don't I fucking draw them as zombies? Because who doesn't fucking love some zombies? and that's what I'm doing here. Did you know the characters in the film, Liz, Diane, and David, Liz being Sean's girlfriend, Diane and David being her friends, her flatmates, I guess they all live together. Did you know they're all teachers? This is something I think I heard about it on one of the commentaries, and it's never really mentioned in the film, and it doesn't really play a part in the film exactly, but it kind of does. So David does mention he's a lecturer right at the end, where he's got a gun, the Winchester, pointed at Sean's mum as she's about to turn into a zombie. And they've all got broken bottles at each other's necks and whatever as they're having a standoff. And David says, "For a hero, you're being very hypocritical." And then Sean says, "You're the one who's gone from being Charlton Heston. You're the one who's gone from being a chartered accountant to Charlton Heston." And he says, "I'm not a chartered accountant." "Well, you look like one." "I'm a lecturer." "You're a twat." "Yeah." So he says, "I'm a lecturer." So he lets you know he's a lecturer. And what's not exactly mentioned but kind of hinted at and is kind of used in the film is Diane, David's girlfriend, Liz's friend, is mentioned that she's a failed actress. Or what, hang out with my friends? Oh, sorry, a failed actress and a twat. That's harsh. Your words. I did not call Diane a failed actress. That's very funny. And then he has previously evidently called David a twat, and then later on he does actively, outwardly call David a twat, which is quite funny. So it's mentioned that Diane at some point wanted to be an actress or tried to be an actress but didn't make it. So I think it's safe to assume that within this teacher idea, she's possibly a drama teacher or an acting teacher or something. Because then, later in the film, when they're in the garden, and I can't remember who says it, one of them says, "We're not going to get anywhere by moaning." And then they all have like the light bulb idea moment where they realise they can imitate the zombies, or try to imitate the zombies to get past them. And then it falls on Diane to like guide them through acting like zombies, because she's a failed actress or an acting coach or a drama teacher or something. And it's also, I guess, again, not really said or implied, but it makes sense that Liz, Sean's girlfriend, is an English teacher. Now, not much is really given to that, but she does use the word exacerbate, which certainly for me, when I first saw the film, had never heard that word before. Sean had never heard that word before. Ed has never heard that word before, because they all say, "What does that mean?" at some point in the film. And then she even uses the word exacerbate a couple of times, and Sean uses the word exacerbate at least once, maybe twice. And so it would make sense that she's an English teacher. She knows words that other people don't know. And I believe that was mentioned on a commentary somewhere. And that's a detail in the film that, like, knowing that that little group of friends, they all live together, they're all teachers, maybe in the same like college or school or whatever. It's interesting to know, but it doesn't necessarily impact the film. Like, not knowing that they are teachers doesn't give you any less enjoyment of the film, and knowing that they are teachers doesn't really increase enjoyment of the film. I find it just to be an interesting little detail as to, like, oh yeah, that would make sense. That builds their characters a little bit. It's not hugely necessary, but it kind of works. And I like knowing that might be the case. Again, I'm not sure if it is canon, if it's 100% true that that's the thing, they are teachers. But I like the idea that they could be, and I like that I know that about the film I have seen so very, very often. Do I have anything more to talk about the film? Yes! You better fucking believe I do. Right, so I'll get this one out of the way, just because it's the big, obvious one that I guess everyone knows. Possibly. Does everyone know? Is everyone fully aware that when he's just broken up with Liz and he's crying, he's in the pub with Ed and he's crying, and then Ed says, I'm not gonna tell you there's plenty more fish in the sea. I'm not gonna tell you if you love her, let her go. But what I will say is this: it's not the end of the world. And then someone, a zombie maybe, puts their hand on the window, and then John goes, "Sorry, we're closed." And then it cuts to the scene straight after that where they are closed, but Ed and Sean are obviously friendly enough with the owner that they are allowed to stay after hours for a bit. And then Ed says about tomorrow, let's keep drinking. I've got it noted down to make sure I get it right. And he says, well, fuck it, tomorrow, whatever, let's keep drinking. Have a Bloody Mary first thing, have a bite of the King's Head, a couple of the Little Princess, and stagger back here, and bang, back at the bar for shots. Is everybody aware that is a layout of the entire film, basically? That his little thing of where they should go for drinks sets out the events of the movie up to the end. Is that... Because I think it's on a commentary, so it's not like information that you have to dig deep to find. But when I first heard it, it blew my stupid little mind out the back of my head. Much like a zombie being blasted in the face with a Winchester repeater rifle. That it did. Like when I first heard that, I was like, no, that can't be true. And then I thought about it and realised, no, it is. That's absolutely the case. Because, and I'm going to, maybe it is common knowledge, but I'm going to talk about it anyway. So, right. Have a Bloody Mary first thing. The girl in the garden. In the garden there is a girl called Mary. Push her over. She gets a thing through the thing. I think it's like an umbrella stand, like a garden umbrella stand pole that you put the umbrella in and it holds up the umbrella, and she falls onto that. And that's quite bloody. So Bloody Mary, bloody first thing. And that's what happened first thing. They wake up in the morning, there's a girl in the garden, Bloody Mary. Then have a bite of the King's Head. They go to get Philip, who is Sean's stepdad, and he gets bitten. He's already been bitten, but he gets bitten again. And he is the father figure in Sean's life, the patriarch, king-ish. Bite at the King's Head, the king gets bitten. So that's that one. I'm repeating what everyone already knows. But a couple at the Little Princess. They go to pick up Liz, David and Di. I believe the couple is David and Di, and the princess in question would be Liz, which would make sense because it'd be like, you know, Sean's princess, Liz. I think when I first heard that, I wasn't sure if maybe there was a Princess Diana reference in there somewhere, because one of the characters' names is Diane, Di, and they say a couple at the Little Princess and a Princess Di. Is that a reference to the dead Princess Di? I don't think it is, but that was stagger back here, where they all imitate zombies and stagger literally to here, which is the Winchester pub where they end up. And then bang, back at the bar for shots, because they're at the bar with a gun, shooting. It's all fucking... It's laid out. Which is... I don't just want to sit here and suck this movie's dick, or suck the dicks of the creators too much, but that's the whole point of me having a Shaun of the Dead episode. That's what I wanted to do, was just talk about the film. So I'm going to. But it's very, very clever. It's not a necessary thing. You don't have to put that in the film. But and it doesn't necessarily elevate the story, but it fleshes out the character of Ed, who drinks a lot, likes to drink, and knows all the best places to go in town to drink, and suggests they spend the whole day drinking. But also, almost unnecessarily, but like while you're doing it, why not add to that the layout of the whole film, the foreshadowing, and there is a lot of foreshadowing in the film anyway. A lot of next time I see him, he's dead. With regards to Pete, when Sean's doing his early morning walk to the shop, and the kid kicks the football at him, like right outside his house, and he goes, "Oi, you're dead!" And then the kid becomes a zombie. The kid is dead. There's all this foreshadowing throughout the whole film, and I think one of the biggest, most impressive pieces of foreshadowing, possibly in almost any film, is Ed laying out the entirety of the plot in his plan to drink a lot. Isn't that very smart? Isn't that really good? Other favourite lines include, did you know that on several occasions Philip touched me? That's not true. Made it up. You shouldn't have done. Sorry. That was very, very funny. And that's actually just after another really good line of, "You chased me around the garden with a bit of wood." Well, you did call him a you know what. Oh, he told you that, did he? Yes. Motherfucker. Sean. Sorry, mother. Mum. It's funny. Hey, do you want to listen to me quote Shaun of the Dead? Because that's all I'm going to do. I have a few notes of like things to talk about, points to bring up. I think I've gotten through most of them. I guess I can end on the two most unrealistic parts of Shaun of the Dead, in my eyes. This is two parts that don't necessarily ruin the film, but they do, like... so I mentioned recently, maybe even just last week, about realism in zombie films. And like anything can happen, because if the zombies are walking around, then more or less all rules are out the window. It doesn't... Like, you can do what you want. So with this one, I'm a little bit like, sure, it can happen, I guess, fine. But personally, I'm not hugely happy with the fact that it happens. And that is when, right towards the end, just after Sean has to shoot his mum, and then David says, "Well, I think we can all agree you did the right thing." And Sean turns around and fucking smacks him, and he falls to the floor. And then David grabs the gun and pulls the trigger, and luckily there's no shells left in it, because he would have just shot Sean in the face. So then he gets up and he goes to leave, because he's like, "I'm not staying here." And then he's about to stay here, I think, but then the window breaks, zombies grab him, pull him through the window, tear him apart, pull his guts out, all kinds of shit, gnarly goodness, which we love to see. And I think that's a direct sort of reference to Day of the Dead. I could sit here and point out every reference I know, but I might genuinely do that for a separate video, where the army guy gets torn apart and they're pulling his intestines out and he's going, "Choke on him! Choke on him!" Or it could just be a reference to every zombie film ever where you have a scene with someone getting their guts pulled out. So he has his guts pulled out. And then I think it's Liz and Diane are pulling at his legs to like try to pull him back into the pub. But then both of his legs come off, which is... It's not just that his legs come off, but like his legs with the jeans. He was wearing jeans, and his legs come off with the jeans attached. So the jeans have like like I've gone over and over and over the years in my mind, trying to figure out like, but could it work in this way? Could it work in that way? Like maybe the body's being pulled apart and so everything's weakened because it's now dead and the legs just pop off like that. Is that a thing that can happen? I don't think it is, but the legs just come off with the jeans detach somehow in like completely around the leg and just pop off like an action figure's leg just going. So that's one of the major, for me, the major like almost a plot hole that I can't get past it. I can get past almost anything else in that film, that like continuity errors or things that don't really make sense or whatever. But there's just that one that I'm like, the legs can't just come off. And I kind of get why they did it. And then Diane uses the leg as a weapon to beat her way through the zombies. And there is a bonus feature on the DVD that shows that she does survive, and it shows how she survives using the leg, actually. But it's like, it can't just come off. The other most unrealistic part is, so on the televisions, you see very briefly at the beginning, but a little bit more at the end. And I think there is a whole featurette you can watch the whole thing. There's the guy, the presenter, going, and we're dead excited to have a top band in working on their contribution to Zombaid or whatever. And the band is Coldplay. And the most unrealistic thing for me out of the whole film is the idea that anyone would be dead excited that Coldplay are involved in anything ever. Which is very, very funny of me to say. But that's also ruined by the whole... Recently, there was that two people of wealth got caught cheating at a Coldplay concert. So now people are probably more open to Coldplay because of that. And I disagree. I think the idea of anyone being dead excited for Coldplay for any reason is absurd. And that's the biggest, most unrealistic, most unbelievable part of Shaun of the Dead, is that anyone, anywhere, could ever like Coldplay.